Hey everyone. Hey everyone, I'm live. I'm gonna quickly try to post this to my Facebook page and then we'll get started. Hey everyone. Just let me see if I can share this. I tried to do this last time and it didn't work out too well. I'm doing it now. And it's working, yay. Hey everyone, hey Tina. Who's all there? Hi. Marin, Becky. Oh, hi Becky. Yeah. All right, so I got that sent out, which is good. And I just wanted to welcome everyone. Thank you. I was afraid that I was not going to be able to do this because the signal, the Wi-Fi had been up and down all day. And I was actually going to pre-record this so that I could just post it like when I get home or something. So doing things a little bit differently tonight. I actually don't have the camera reversed so that I can pull it from the tripod and walk you through each of these pieces. So what you're seeing now is actually reversed. And when I go with the other camera, you'll be able to see things the way I actually created them. But I wanted to talk to you first about the process and about a little bit of background about these pieces. So tonight we're going to be talking about wood panels, and my wood panels come from a body of work that I started to do I guess 6 years ago. So I'm James Frederick, Frederick Studio Provincetown. I'm an artist, I'm a painter, an illustrator, and a cartoonist. And I moved to Provincetown in 2014 to focus only on my art. And in 2015, I opened Frederick Studio Provincetown. So it was either in that first year or the second year, I did a body of work that was called, hey Lori, that was called Gables and Cables. And it was because I was obsessed with the rooftops and the wires of Provincetown. Like, it's so densely constructed and populated in such a narrow space because of the National Seashore. There's not a lot of room for expansion. And so it's really kind of dense. And because of that, and because we're at sea level, you can't really submerge utilities. So there's a lot of utility poles and wires and lots of rooftops. And so I created this body of work that was called Gables and Cables. And you know, the point was to really express those attributes of the town. And I did those on canvas and on wood. And some of you watching may actually have collected those back then. And they weren't quite as monochromatic backgrounds as the ones that I do now. But they had a little more kind of detail painted in. And then I wanted to do the wires and the rooftops and was going to go in with a really small brush. And I really, as you can tell from a lot of my paintings, I don't like using little brushes. And so I just grabbed the oil pastels to do the wires and some of the accenting of the buildings. And the ones that I did on wood panels were amazing. They just came to life and I just loved the way it looked, and it was a popular show, and I just continued to do these. And the first batch of those, they were a little bit more like dark brown and dark blue and with a lot of white line. They kind of resembled blueprints in a way, you know, because it was really about the architecture. But over time, I've done a lot of different scenes beyond the rooftops and the wires, and I do like seascapes and marinas and boat scenes and more kind of distant shots. And the pieces have gotten a lot more colorful, which you will see, and they're just highly collectible. I mean, a lot of people like to buy them over time, so I kind of continue to do the same sizes, so you can collect one this year, one next year, and I just keep doing different Outer Cape scenes. I want to show you the one that I did It's one of my favorite views, and it is a view. I don't know if you'll be able to see this because it's on my iPad, but this one is called Shadow on Cottage, and I donated it to PAM, which is the Provincetown Art Association and Museum, and Art Association, pardon me, and Art Museum, PAAM.org. And so this piece is going to go up in their 12 by 12 silent auction, which starts a week from today on July 10th. But this is one of my favorite views because of all those rooftops and wires, and you can get a sense of how I was so inspired in that way. So that one is called Shadow on Cottage, and it will be, you probably saw it in reverse though because of the camera. So anyway, I want to talk to you how I create these pieces. So I take a piece of birch, it's called a cradled panel. So it's birch ply, sometimes it's bass wood, but it's birch wood. And there's a small, maybe 1/8 inch, sometimes thicker, depending on the size of the panel, piece of birch on the face of it. And then it's cradled on usually pine or poplar. And birch has this really beautiful luster to it. So I don't know if I can get the light to hit this, but you can see that there's just this wonderful light in the grain. And so I like that to come through. So the next step is I paint this. And I paint it with acrylic paint. But what I do is I use a matte medium to make the viscosity a little thinner, and so that it becomes a little more translucent. And sometimes I wipe away the paint after it goes on, and sometimes I leave it. But you can see how gorgeous the grain becomes when the paint gets to fill it in, or I guess enhance it is what I would say. So that's what happens. I paint the face, then I paint the edges all the way around with this kind of combination. It's the one I use even on the sides of my canvases. I mix up a little burnt umber, sometimes raw umber, and I mix it with black, usually Mars black, and just get the right ratio so that it's not a black, and it has a little bit of life to it. But that's the next step. And then I draw on top of it to create a scene. So this is called Gray Day at the Jetty, and it's basically, you're seeing it in reverse, but I'll show it to you again when I pull the camera off. And so all of the smudging and the thicker lines are oil pastel, and the fine lines are a colored pencil. And it's a very waxy pencil. I use the Prismacolor Premier pencils and a handy electric pencil sharpener because I really bear down. So there's a lot of pencil on there. And so that's what it ends up looking like. I also use, so the oil pastel I just wanted to share with you are these old sets that my father used to have. So I use his oil pastels. And Lori, you're gonna love to see these because I have really, like you can see my favorite colors. They're all the little short ones that I've like broken in half and used the sides of. But I love using his oil pastels because not only are they great quality because they're so old and made at a really great time, but that he used them. So that's kind of cool to me. So over time, the oil and the wax cure to the surface. So I just wanted to point out that it looks like it's chalk, like it would wipe off, but it dries to the surface, which is really great. So they're fairly hardy. There was a series of these at one point that I sealed, and I'll tell you, it changes them dramatically. So I really say don't seal them, but just don't, put them in the sunlight or any place that you would want, or that you would get a lot of moisture. You want them to not have strong elements. So that's the scoop on how I create those. Now, let me see if I forgot anything, as I have notes again, like attached to the tripod. Yeah, so also some people sent me some questions beforehand, which was really great because I'm going to make sure that I incorporate answers to those as I talk. And I'm going to keep looking. Hey everyone, I'm going to keep looking through and make sure that no questions come up. So feel free to type in questions. Last time that worked out pretty well because I was able to scroll back through and look at them and answer while we were there on the live feed. So I'm going to put some of this stuff to the side so that I can show you the pieces. So I have about 18 pieces here on hand, I think. One or two of them are newer, and the other ones I did a few months ago and since last fall. So depending on the size, it may have been here a little bit longer. What else do I want to tell you? So Provincetown, just a little bit about, before I take this off and can't see you anymore, you won't be able to see me anyway, is opened up. You know, we are going to go into the third phase of our reopening on Monday. There are a lot of people here, and some are very well behaved and some of them aren't, as far as social distancing and wearing wood. Wearing wood. I'm reading and talking at the same time, wearing masks. So can a wood painting be commissioned and in different sizes? That's a great question. I do a lot of different sizes. I do, the smallest I like to work is 8 by 8. I've done a few smaller than that, but it gets to be too much detail. So 8 by 8 or larger. My standard sizes are 8 by 8s, 12 by 12s, and then I sometimes do 11 by 14s, and you'll see some large ones that are like 30 by 24. And I do commissions, but they have to be a local location so that I can actually drive there, take photographs, because I work from photographs, and I need to have a connection to the location. And even though I end up working from a photograph, I have this recall of what it felt like to be there, and it's a really important part of it for me, to be able to put some heart into it. So I'd love to be able to do commissions from all over, but I can't. And I like to be able to control like the angle of the photos that I take and work from, so that's the way that works. And I've done a few commissions of houses here in Provincetown, one in Truro, and some large ones, and some smaller 12 by 12s. So I am open to that. It's harder for me to get those done in season. So typically I'll work on those in the shoulder seasons, like the spring or the fall. So anyway, back to Provincetown. I just closed to do this, which was kind of a relief because after wearing a mask and being open for a while, you just kind of like want to, I don't know, reduce your exposure to people. So I was happy to jump on and talk to all of you. And I put a little note on the door that says, "Do not disturb." So hopefully no one will be banging on the door. But it seems to be a little quieter than it was right before I started. So anyway, enough of that. Any more questions yet? Okay, I'm going to take this off of the stand and I'm going to flip the camera. And there we go. Move my finger out of the way would be a good thing. I want to show you these pieces that I have right here. So this is the one that I was showing you when I was talking through the process, and it's kind of in the dark down there. So let me put it right here so you can see it. And this is the one that's the Jetty, and it's one of the 8 by 8s. So when it's an 8 by 8 or when it's a bigger panel that has a really deep panel, I usually don't frame these. I feel like they look really great without. And if it's a shallower panel, I usually frame them. So that one is called Gray Day at the Jetty. And then this one's called Sal's Old Place. So that's another 8 by 8. And if you guys know Provincetown, this is where Sal's restaurant is now. And this was before the new current owners have taken over. So that's Sal's Old Place. And This one is called Summer Harbor from the Pier. And I love the wood grain in this one and how it creates kind of a sky with clouds, as you can see. So that red boat, which I love painting and drawing, is called Miss Lily. And it's one of our fishermen's boats out there. And it's just quite popular for me because I love the red contrast to all of the blue that we have here in Cape Cod. And then there's another one. This is called Sunset Glow at Long Point. And another reason I'm doing the handheld is so that you can see the wood grain. And I'm going to move some of these occasionally so that you can see the light play on it. So this one, although it looks pretty like solid orange straight on, as you can see, when I turn it a bit, it really gets a lot of play on the light, and you can see that reflection of the grain into the part that I'm calling the water. So that one is another 8x8. So I put a link in the description of this live video that you can click on that takes you to the wood panel section of my website. So this piece is called All in a Day's Work, and you may have seen a video of it that I posted today, but it's a large piece. It is 30 wide by 24 inches tall, and yeah, Natalie, it looks like you just asked about the website. So yeah, all of these wood panels are on my website. There might be one on there that is not available anymore, so I will go in and make sure I take that down. But yeah, I did answer your question. So this one, I just love the grain in this one. Check this out. And I used a kind of a wash that went from kind of a golden color into this darker orange and rust. And I just love the way it feels as far as like a sunset sky. So these are the Days cottages that are in Truro, and they're all named after flowers, if you're familiar with them. And this is a view from the water looking towards the backs of the cottages where they have lots of windows and little porches. Some of them are enclosed, but mostly they're just, 3-season porches. And then this upper one is another large piece, and this one is called Harbor Pilings. It's the same size. It's 30 by 24, and you can see the wood grain a bit in that one. And I created a lot more variation in the background on this one before I did the drawing. And if you're familiar with this scene, this is right outside of my studio here. It's in the back of this building, and it's an old pier that's dilapidated and kind of falling apart. It was called the Lancey Pier, and it was associated with a restaurant that we had back there that has burnt a long time ago and has never been rebuilt. That was called the Old Reliable Fish House. So that's called Harbor Pilings. And it's on one of those thick panels too, as you can see from the side here. All right, so then the rest of these that I'm going to take you through are 12 by 12s, and there's a variety of them. This one I call Moorings, and I love the color in this one too. So this is just, and you can see the Bay Lady in the distance coming through because she's got that white hull. So this is a view out through the harbor with a lot of sailboats moored. And here's another view of that jetty I love in the far west end of town, but this has the breakwater, the rocks, the jetty. We call it a lot of different things. It has it more on an angle. And you can see wood in the distance. There's some interesting texture to the wood in this one. So that one's called Through the Moors. And this one is called Way to the West. And this is bright orange. So you can see these things have gotten very colorful. I've had a period of loving orange. And so this is a drawing of Commercial Street in the West End, just beyond that house that I love so much. It's set back with the picket fence. And right up here, like 4 doors down on the left, is Captain Jack's. So it's right there at like, I can't remember. I think it's in the 70s on Commercial Street. So that's called Way to the West. And this one is called Summer Haze. And it's the view of the old Martin House. And if you look down the little alley between the boat slip and the Martin House, you can see Wood End in the distance, which I love. And so the Martin House was, I believe, a restaurant. It's now a private residence. So that's right at the intersection of Commercial. And again, the wood is always different on these. So depending on the angle, you can see a lot of different textures. This one I call On the Fence, and it's because there's this boat strapped on the fence there on the left. But this is down at the bend in the Commercial Street when it heads out towards the West End, and you can see the Coast Guard Pier in the distance and Wood End. And that building on the right is the one that's familiar to everyone because it has the trademark yellow doors on all of the doors. So that's On the Fence. And yeah, the wood grain in that one is fab. So this is a newer piece. This is the Days Cottages again that I was telling you about in the other piece. And this cottage is the one called Aster. So you can actually even read the name on the building there. So the wood grain is incredible in that one. I love the color and how that came out. You can see how I've highlighted the bay beyond and how it works so well with the wood grain. So that's looking from across the street at those cottages, and that's Aster in the center. It's called Aster, actually. And this piece is called Gosnell Beach. And this is, if you are familiar with Provincetown, Gosnell Street as it goes towards the beach. And there's a sign back there that says Art. And that's Julie Heller's Beach Gallery is there. And I love that sign. I think I've mentioned to you before on here about what that sign has meant to me so many mornings as I've walked in all kinds of different weather down to my studio thinking about what it is I'm here for, and it's art. So it's a great reminder. This is also at the end of this alley is where I keep my kayak, and it's right there by the water, which is great. So that one has a lot of the feeling of some of the original pieces with all of the wires and the rooftops from Gables and Cables. That one's called, again, Gosnell Beach. Hope this isn't too shaky for you without the tripod. So we'll go down to this next level, and this piece is called Road to Pops, and it's another bright orange piece. And the reason it's called Road to Pops is because that's Pop and Dutch at the end of the road there. So this is oh gosh, what is the name of the street? Conant Street, looking from kind of the point where Muscle Beach parking lot is down towards the harbor. So that one is called Road to Pops. And this piece is called Captain Jack's, which is very iconic and identifiable here in Provincetown. It's one of the little wharfs that has lots of little residential cottages on it. And it's in the West End, and it's very, very charming and picturesque. So that one is called Captain Jack's. So I love drawing these. I just love You know, I worked for years as an interior designer, and I was trained to draw things technically with mechanical drawing and perspective, and I love actually using those tools. I don't use a lot of rulers or triangles or anything, but you know, I make a few kind of key points that are important to keep the perspective, and then I just freehand it, and I just love doing that because it really flexes those skills that I learned then. This piece is called Tangerine Evening, and it's a view of Race Point from Herring Cove. You can see a little bit of an inlet there of Hatches Harbor. The sky in this one is incredible. I love the wood grain and the color. And it's 12 by 12 like the rest. So I like this view. I've painted this view. I've drawn this view. This is the view I have when I do my beach fires on Herring Cove with my dear friends. This piece is called, Shack in the Dunes. And it's one of the dune shacks here in Provincetown. It's called Seascape. And it's the only one I've actually been able to stay in. And there are a lot of shacks along the north side of town up against the water after Race Point. So you're kind of leaning more into the Atlantic at that point. And these shacks, you know, were owned by different families and were used by artists and writers, and there's a lot of history with them. This is one of the larger ones. It's definitely a lot bigger than a lot of the shacks. It has like 3 full rooms, 2 rooms downstairs and an upstairs room as well. So those are the wood panels that I have on hand here. I was trying to watch for questions, and I think there weren't any. Are there any? Yes, Tina, you need to come into my studio. I'll be happy to give you a tour. So these are the pieces that we went through as I step back. And you can see these larger ones in relation to those. And then here are some of the smaller ones. But again, they're not as well lit down there. So that's it. It's going to be a short one tonight, folks. Unless anyone's got, whoa, you're not supposed to see that. That's a surprise. That's for next week's show. So speaking of that, next week I have another opening on Friday night, and it's a whole bunch of new paintings, and you may have just seen really quickly a giant painting. It's 5 foot by 4 foot that I'm just finishing up. It's going to be kind of the centerpiece of that show, and it's called Vivid Tranquility 3, and it starts at 7 o'clock on July 10th. And I'll be taking you through multiple pieces inspired, and I call it Vivid Tranquility 3 because it's the 3rd installment of a lot of pieces that are more kind of an abstract referential place celebrating the beauty that is Cape Cod, because it's so amazing, but in this beautiful, soothing way. So that's why I call it Vivid Tranquility. And then after that, I think the next show will be in August, which is called the Birds and the Bees, and the Flowers and the Trees. So I'll be doing a lot of florals, and I've been doing some insects each year. I did dragonflies and butterflies, and so I'll be doing some more of that stuff. But I'm actually very excited about that because I've been inspired to go in a lot of different directions with that work. So that's coming up too in August. And then in September, I will have some more wood panels, I think, for you when I celebrate the 400th anniversary of the Pilgrim's Landing here. So not really quite sure what that's going to look like yet, and we'll figure that out as we go. So I don't see any more questions scrolling up. So if there aren't any, I'm going to say, yeah, I love those dragonflies too. I wish I still had them. Mark just made a comment. But anyway, I will let you guys go and tune in next Friday night, and we'll go through Vivid Tranquility. Everyone have a safe and happy Independence Day, and take care.